Hey, good morning, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. What's going on? Welcome to Dialed In. Before we start the show here, some quick changes here. So we're doing a live podcast here. So a couple minutes right before we actually get into it, I'm going to play the intro in just a second. We'll get into it. But if you guys are tuning in, let me know where you are watching from. Hello, Z Kane from Watching Inside Your House. Thanks for joining. And we're going to get into a good topic today: excellence in the art of technology with Robin Austin, and we're gonna have a good show today. How you feeling? How you feeling this morning, Robin?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on, Kyle. This should be a great talk. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to kick off the intro in just a minute, and then we'll jump right into it. I just wanted to give us time to get set up here and get people situated inside the stream here. So without further ado, let's do it. There will always be somebody stronger, faster, and smarter than you. Surviving depends on your adaptability to change. Those who are the most adaptable are dialed in. Welcome to the show, Robin Austin. Robin is 35 years in technology, 17 years in cybersecurity, focusing on evolutionary, disruptive, beneficial, money-making solutions. She is a board CISO, having created cybersecurity governance frameworks for C-level leaders, and basically an all-around trusted advisor. Robin, are you ready to get dialed in?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Kyle.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. So jumping right into the first topic here, in your 35 years, you've kind of developed this framework, if you will, of excellence in the art of technology. So technology is an art form. That is picking the right vendors, evaluating technology in itself. That is an art form. So why don't we begin with that?
Well, with all the things that have been going on the past few months, I do want to address the fact that, there are a couple of lessons that are learned, and they're very simple. Together is better. One of the things that we really need to focus on is removing silos and remember that together is better. And we have a whole ecosystem around that. And recently, ElevateXchange community was formed by Cs. It's a new group that was formed by Cs for Cs. Now, I helped spearhead it, but it's a whole community where everybody collaborates, everybody shares, and therefore everybody benefits. That's number one. Number two, partnerships in the vendor community, we need our vendors. Okay. We never say that much, but we really do. And, I will tell you that there are one of the things that I've learned is having the right vendors with the same integrity and the same ideology as you have as a company and as a person has been, a survival, has met the difference between, uh, well, it's helped me survive, put it that way. My company survived, and I have to shout out. I have to shout out with at least there's 4 vendors that, well, including Catch Cloud, which is your company, um, and vendors like Merlin and Lastline and Unitrends. Those 4 vendors I have to throw out and shout out at them because they have the same ideology as I do, and it's together is better. And as a trusted advisor, they've helped me be, a lot more resilient, and help a lot of other people. So it's just, it's not just about you, it's about your whole community. And ElevateXchange was formed by that. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, that does. And so ElevateXchange, since you mentioned it, you already brought it up. I didn't know we were going to bring it up this early, but that's perfect. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is ElevateXchange?
Well, it's a community by Cs for Cs, and its mission, well, is to fill gaps. I mean, as C-level people, we talk about the enormous amount of gaps in every faction of our business. And, we can't do it all, but because it's community driven, we're hoping to help, not only with the challenges of those gaps, but also, have those people in the room that may have had the experience to help share that and kind of, fill those gaps. One of them, I got to tell you just a little story. I was at a CISO dinner, and it was surrounded by a lot of my peers. And I was standing there chatting with one of my peers, and another peer walked up and said, "Robin, I want to sit on a board. I think I need to follow this path um, as far as my career development." And you know what? That was the third link that helped me bring together ElevateXchange. I mean, actually helped me put the effort into forming it, because I realized the only time we work on our career is when we're laid off, fired, or acquired. So, we talk about all the time about, you know, uh, how do I put it? Um, Hiring challenges that we have in organization, but we never talk about our own. So that's just one gap.
Oh, no, that is so true. I mean, you go to any networking event across the country, you're going to find the majority of people there are in the market for jobs. It should probably be the other way around. Like, you should be there when you have a job. You should be networking before you need a new job, right? Um,
That's the point.
I
Yeah,
don't careful with the word should. You could be networking before you before you need a new job, right? But
right.
you could be doing, and that's what ElevateXchange is. The premise is, right?
Yes, that's only one gap.
Right. So how did all that come to be? Like, how did you? I mean, you kind of painted the picture of the problem, but so Casey Yarbrough, shout out to you. He's running Elevate IT. So somewhere along that path, you run into Casey Yarbrough, and then this. It's like, tell us that story.
Well, I got acquired with. I'm just going to go back to the capital company that I used to work for, and how I became, trusted advisor. You mentioned trusted advisor, and trusted advisor is a term that we a lot of times think is a lot overused. So it can mean a lot of different things. Well, back in the day when I worked for a capital company, I I literally I was hired as a strategist to do due diligence around, well, investments. And part of them, there were four areas of concern for the investors, and one of them was technology. So I'm going back a little ways so that you can understand how I became a trusted advisor in the first place, because it was really greenfield. I was already doing a lot of the things that our peers needed from they needed to have this kind of information, and it wasn't in their job description really. And it's not really a skill set for their people. I mean, it's not, they're so busy running the company, and that's what they need to be doing. Okay. It's just that they get thrown in the mix every time they have to evaluate something. And it's not that they don't have the wherewithal. It's just that, they're stretched so thin already. So my peers came to me while I was already doing this and started asking me for advice, just, okay, so what are you looking at in this area? We're looking at this. What do you think? And so little by little, it became known in the marketplace that I had this knowledge, and I just shared it because why not? I was very truthful. I have a tendency to be very direct, as my peers know. They laugh about it a little bit, I hope. Um, so from there, I got acquired. We built it, and it became very successful, the capital company, and we got acquired a couple of years ago. Well, out of that came, I want my swan song. And also for the past 10 years, my peers have been saying, we need this, we need that, because they came to me for other things. So it just was it was just, they knew I was open to any kind of input or any kind of question that they might ask. So little by little, I became that trusted advisor. And I'm not saying they came to me for everything, but it was more or less a collaboration. They needed, nobody can work alone. Together is better. So, it ended up being where my swan song was, well, we've talked about filling the gaps among my peers for a long time, but nobody really was doing it effectively. And I don't mean to say that there aren't other companies out there trying their best, but it has to come from us for us. Okay, we understand what we need. We understand how to communicate with each other. It's those outside looking in, they're really not versed in those kinds of things. So as a swan song, well, my peers, I went to them and said, and they kept saying, well, Robin, if you build it, we will come. I went, okay, well, and I pointed at them and said, well, okay, I may hold you to that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I thought, well, okay. So for a couple of years, I started looking around for some kind of support system because together is better, and frankly, I have a full-time job. This is my swan song. So I met Casey Yarbrough, and oh my gosh, he's so much like me, and I feel sorry for him in a way because he thinks like me. Um, I get two sentences in, and he already knows where I'm going with my thought process, and he's one of two things. He usually isn't wrong. Okay, um, and he has the most utmost integrity. So he had 25 years in the event business, and one of the things I wanted to do with ElevateXchange was to give our people a voice, to let our people be seen. Okay, so not just speaking engagements, but also, which is part of what Casey brings to the table as his 25-year veteran in events. And he stretched out, he had worked for another company and was just starting on his own. So we literally found it was timing, you know, or what I call a God thing. I mean, I'm a very God person. So people walk in your door when you're supposed to have them. And he is provided the infrastructure for us as a community for ElevateXchange within his own event structure. So it's led to my ability and our community's ability to actually launch back in January, and the room was full. It was awesome. Okay. We had four really awesome vendors as well. Okay. That came along and supported us and also benefited. So it's a win-win-win situation for everyone. And that's why the community was formed.
Right, right. And how critical is it for an IT leader, a C level, even an IT director, and anyone in the IT field? How critical is it for them to develop this personal brand, if you will, of getting up there and doing speaking engagements, getting on shows like this? Do you have any stories that you could share around that? I know I didn't prep.
Oh, yes. I mean, we get buried. I mean, especially, now. The launch for ElevateXchange was January 16th, was about the time, but we launched and had a full room. And to be honest with you, there were a lot that called me at the last minute. A lot of my peers, sent me texts, sent me emails going, I've had an incident at work. I can't make it, but I'll come to the next one. So, they got it. Okay. My peers have got it. It's just now that we're looking to come back, and we've, with Casey's help and your help, we've pivoted in order to do a lot more things online. We had planned to do, video broadcasts for people, get speaking engagements for our peers, video broadcast, podcast, all of that. And that's part of why I'm on today, is to make sure that people actually, on the Elevate IT or under ElevateXchange, under the Elevate IT website, there is, a registration link for your calendar in order to get on this show. Now you have to qualify, and you have to be a member of ElevateXchange, but it's easy. All you have to do to be on a member of ElevateXchange is to be a director or above, functioning. It doesn't have to be title wise. It's about the area of responsibility. So you could be a manager. You could be the only IT person in a government, city government, and that's fine. Okay, you are your senior level executive. And then all you have to do is become a member, and we have a survey, a little form you fill out to become a member. And then you can schedule your broadcast, and we're going to post those broadcasts on Dialedin to ElevateXchange. And Kyle, you've been very instrumental in that support system in order to get that out as part of our community.
Yeah,
Does
no,
that answer your question?
yeah, absolutely does. And what's the cost of this membership? Just because you
Oh,
called,
there's no cost.
there you go.
No, there's
So
no cost.
like you said earlier, in it together, right? So it's about bringing all these people together into a group, a support system.
And the speaking engagement, Kyle, I have to say that, Casey has been the greatest partner in this because, he has allowed me to have a lot of input into, getting some people on board, getting, the way he's added Elevate IT, a VIP room that's become an ElevateXchange, another meeting for ElevateXchange within his organization, but he pays for it all. Okay. So, in all fairness, I have to say he's been the greatest partner and been the most supportive person. And so, we're going forward. I will tell you that although I plan to talk to you about this at the end of this conversation, this is a perfect lead in to on May 7th, we have James Carpenter of Scottish Rite Children's, who's CISO for that organization, who is going to be the first virtual ElevateXchange. Our January 16th was live. Okay. And we hope to get back to live sometime. But in the meantime, we're going to do virtual so that we can continue to share and collaborate together. And May 7th, we will get out. It will be posted on the Elevate IT. It is already posted on the Elevate IT website. And I will be sharing the flyer that Casey helped me develop so that I can get it out to our community so that they can still continue to be a part of the community as we go forward. I still want to make sure that they become a member and then they schedule their broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely. That's critical. And it's amazing what you guys are trying to do for the community, bringing everyone together. I want to pivot now back to, if we will, the main topic of excellence in the art of technology, and go deeper into this trusted advisor. I know we explained it a little bit, but in your 35 years, you've come across trusted advisors that probably didn't even call themselves that, and then but they were that. They exemplified that. So what is that? What is that characteristic, in your opinion, that makes somebody a trusted advisor, and not just a sales rep for whatever company, right?
Right. Well,
There's a big delineation between sales rep and trusted advisor.
I had a column in CIO.com before they also changed their. They became their policy changed quite a bit. But I did have a column on CIO.com. It was called Truth Will Out.
Truth
Okay.
will out.
Truth Will Out, my column. And I had posts every week on that platform for quite a while. And we've pushed those or pulled some of those articles onto the blog for Elevate IT, which is really the blog for ElevateXchange. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Truth Will Out says it all. You have to have a level of integrity that, is beyond reproach. And that means that sometimes the decisions you make and the communication you impart is the truth. You always have to tell the truth. So when you're doing evaluations, I mean, so at Welsh Harris, at the capital company that I used to work for, you know, I did due diligence and my team did due diligence on, wow, 100 to 200 possible opportunities every year. And, in those, and a lot of those were technology. So having said that, we were able to find out, where the weak spots were. And, although communicating that, I'm not going to be in your face about that kind of thing. It's the fact that I had people come to me during that time frame and said, well, hey, Robin, we're going to look at this. Before we do, what are your thoughts? And sometimes I would say, well, I have my concerns, based on your environment or your ecosystem. I have my concerns.
Or
And
on the history of that solution,
oh,
right?
well, yeah, and it is based on the history of the due diligence that I've done for example, we did invest in a technology that going back years, Cisco dominated the market for, firewalls, right?
Mhm.
And there were a couple of companies that built a better mousetrap during, many, many, many years ago. And, everybody had Cisco ASAs, everybody. Okay. So, when they built a better mousetrap, there were a couple of really good alternatives out there that added a lot of functionality to the firewall. And that was really the beginning of, malware protection at that level, at the edge, where, that wasn't a part of, that really, the firewall was very limited under the Cisco ASAs. But everybody since then, if I tell you that today and you weren't a part of that time frame, you're going to look at me cross-eyed and go, "Excuse me, but they've been around forever." No, they haven't been around forever. So we did due diligence on several of those companies coming into that market space, and you'd think, everybody's out there in technology going, "Oh, I gotta invent something new." Well, these two companies already had a market. Okay, the market was built. They just built a better mousetrap, and frankly, with a lot of extra functionality. Well, that's very good. That's very good, except for, it's all well and good when you have the extra functionality. Now you as a C or as a company would have to determine, okay, so do my resources, do I have the bandwidth for my resources to be retrained on a completely new tool? Okay.
Right,
I
right.
mean,
That's a huge part of it.
yeah, I mean, especially that's really the top priority when it comes to any kind of technology. And most vendors don't, they get their head down and sometimes they can't communicate effectively. It's not that they don't have a great product, it's just there's communication gaps.
Oh yeah, like something basic, like, hey, we're gonna switch our phone system, like, right, but we're switching it to get like to these two features, which yeah, they're great, but we have to disrupt the entire organization to get those two extra features. So like we have to evaluate the risk of doing that, right?
Right. And that's part of the due diligence. So, when you look at back to the story I was telling around this firewall change, okay, and I picked that up because it's something everybody can identify with, at least at my age.
Hmm.
Okay. And that that was the major challenge. And nobody ever talked about it. But for us, the top major concern was culture, okay, and our resources, and whether or not that pivot, and it is a pivot to a new tool, would be worth the risk and the cost justified. Okay, and there were, in some of these better mousetrap technology tools, there were challenges with implementation. Great complexity brings about, additional challenges with implementation if the vendor company doesn't build in a ease of. It's not about having a sexy dashboard. It's about how effective is the technology, and how easy is it to implement, how without a lot of my resources as a C person involved in that implementation. I already have to do training. They already have to, and if the dashboard is resemblance to what they're already used to looking at, then that's a plus. So I'm just talking about some very few things that my peers right now that are watching this will identify with, and well, they'll just go, well, duh, okay. But some of the vendors out there or other people out there that may be watching this broadcast may not think about. Culture is first, and resources is part of that culture.
Got it. Got it. So, you mentioned like the Palo Alto versus Cisco story, and I love that one. How often do you think we miss these like Palo Alto companies? Like, like in the sense of hyperbolizing Palo Alto as like this golden nugget company that exists right now that maybe you don't even know about. And there's plenty of those in every little vertical, every little technology faucet, right?
There is.
Yeah.
Well, it's a matter of governance inside a company. The decision makers have to decide whether or not um, the risk and the cost is worth the leap to a new tool. And there are factors facing brand new technology that that have to play a role. And I'm just going to mention a couple. Brand new companies coming out in the market, disruptive technology, which I'm sorry, I'm a disruptor person. I'm not saying all C's are, but I'm the kind of person that I look at disruptive technology because they have a tendency to fill the gaps, and I like gap fillers. Okay, fill the gaps that I may not currently have in tools that I have in place, and a lot of my tools may be a lot more expensive, okay, than even what they're coming up with because technology evolves. Now, many years ago, there were a lot more companies with me as their leadership that weren't willing to make that disruptive leap as easily because, well, why fix it if it ain't broke, right?
Right.
That's number one.
Mentality.
Yeah. And number two, um, if if it's a disruptive technology and it's a new company, their exit strategy may be, I want to get bought, which, and that back in the day, people didn't, people like me or people in my position, not like me, but people in my position, it wasn't really thought of much about being bought. Now it's an exit strategy. Okay. It's always, okay, new company, maybe out there 18 months, 24 months. And now, I mean, there are even companies out there that, are less than that. They're getting snapped up. Well, the reason why they're getting snapped up is because the older companies and innovation inside a technology that's already built is extremely costly. Okay. And anytime you buy something, if you have to have additional costs placed on that innovation, that passes along to anybody purchasing. You've heard the old adage that, everything gets passed along to the consumer. It does. Everybody shares in the cost in order to keep that company working. Well, back to the disruptive technology, now there are many larger companies like Cisco who've pivoted in order to be resilient. They've bought Duo, they've bought other technologies out there in order to continue to be relevant in the marketplace. Okay.
Right. They've had to, yeah.
They've had to. Now,
adapt.
And that can be a good thing or can be a bad thing, for whoever purchased them in the first place. But before that, there was this gap in time where disruptive technology got purchased and it ended up being not as good for the buyer. There have been many times that wasn't a good thing. That is pivoted, though. That has changed because now we have Oracle buying companies where Oracle didn't buy companies. Now they're buying technology. We've got major companies out there buying technology. So now there's a lot more confidence at my position to go ahead and invest in disruptive technology to fill those gaps. What are you going to do? Keep the gaps? I mean, at the end of the day, technology evolves too fast, and it is to solve problems. The whole reason technology came into being was to add value and to solve problems. And those vendors that I do due diligence on, they're doing, their roadmaps. I mean, one of the major communications is, what's your roadmap? Okay, you need to know. And if you're not asking that, then you need to know what that is. And the point is that roadmap, that means that you'll know if that's maybe that's kind of an investment protection for you. Okay. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So if a company didn't produce their roadmap after you requested it, that would be very alarming to you, from
Or
from both
what?
the vendor side and advising side, right?
Well, or what's in there. Yeah. Or what's in there. So there are many things, though, that go along with due diligence that are not just from an investment protection, but everything from an investment protection for investors are the same that we have to look at. And a lot of times we miss those. And because I was able, frankly, it was the best decision I made because I was able to be a part of that team and be able to have that experience, that I literally became a trusted advisor to my peers. That's what a trusted advisor needs to be.
Excellent, excellent. So as we go back here, we're getting towards the end here. A few more things popped up for me. So let's say that you picked the wrong vendor, right? In a C-level position or in a director management level position. What happens when you pick the wrong vendor? Like, what could happen when you pick the wrong vendor?
Well, it becomes shelfware is number one. Number two, you have a bad implementation, or I say bad. That's not really a good word. It's It's not as effect. It could be ineffectual, or it could be half effectual. Okay, a portion of it could be effectual. But the problem is that means that your budget's spent.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
and if you make the wrong, that's why it's so key for you to have to these disruptive technologies. They're thrown at. I mean, every time you turn around, you got a new disruptive technology out there. I mean, every time you're turning around.
So how do you be confident in your decisions then? Like with unlimited options, and probably company A and company B, more than likely they could probably do the exact same job. They probably could. So how do you become completely confident in those decisions?
Well, um,
It's a
you know,
tough question.
I've talked. It's very difficult. I mean, the reason why, uh, you try to do the best you can. I mean, there's nobody out there in my position that doesn't, or in the C-level position that doesn't try to do the best they can. The challenge is that you already have a very short staff team running the company, and then you have to pull some of those people off in order to do due diligence around those technologies for your environment. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I am saying you need to have, I mean, Mike, I formed a company inside Welsh in order to, it was more centered around security at the time for that very reason, because it became evident that our ability to do those kinds of things for our peers made it easy for them to have trust, at least the beginning stages of trust. They can utilize the data as they see fit, and then turn around and do a POC. I mean, it's the faster you can get to a POV or a POC, a proof of value, proof of concept, for someone like me or an organization, um, the better, because then you can actually see how it's going to operate in your environment. You can kick the tires all day long, and there's no way to tell until you do a POV. So I would always, and that's why back 10 years ago, there weren't a lot. I mean, asking for a POV from a vendor was, well, there were few, but it wasn't as easy.
It's more
Okay.
difficult. It's more difficult to do than now. Now it's just like, oh, it's just a software license. We'll just turn it on and we'll turn it off. Like now
Well,
it's becoming a lot easier to do that.
well, it is a lot easier because of the cloud environment and because it's not on. Well, there are some companies that
Yeah,
still have
there's
on-prem.
still
I'm
an
not,
on-prem component sometimes in some of the, like SD-WAN and
not
some technologies. So yeah.
I'm sorry, you cut out there a little bit on the video. Can
Oh
you?
yeah,
I mean,
no, I
on
was
the
just saying there still is some on-prem technologies that coincide with the cloud, like SD-WAN, some phone systems, etc. Right? So there are some things that still need something on-prem, an on-prem component. But most of it lives in the cloud now, as far as like the license and like where the magic actually happens is mostly happening in the cloud now. Um,
Well, and we've pivoted again as technology changes, and we're more SaaS oriented. Okay, we're more cloud oriented to the point of now, from a security perspective, we have to have somebody in a position of vendor management, and they have to be really good. They can't just be a contract negotiator. It's not just procurement. It's vendor management, at first started to be just procurement people, right?
right,
It's
right.
not vendor management's not procurement. Vendor management is okay, so how good of a partner do I have, not only from the technology perspective, but from a security perspective?
Oh yeah, no, that's huge. Like, are they willing to sign a BAA? Right? Are they willing to do this? Are they, you know, are they meeting you where you are essentially? Because
Right.
that's what you need.
That's absolutely what you need. And so you can eliminate, you can quickly eliminate them by a few questions, you know. Um, and if they're not, it's difficult because, hackers can get into them and then pass through and get to you. So, there's this whole ecosystem that becomes, you can't just think about your own on-prem or cloud uh, infrastructure. I'm going to say it that way. Okay,
Sure.
it can't be just about where your edge is. Your edge now extends to all the vendors and any kind of product delivery that you have, any kind of supply chain, anything that's in your framework that you do business with. That's the extent, and that's where vendor management comes into play. So you have to have a security professional, or a risk professional that can, actually know and how to manage not only contracts with those SaaS vendors. And ironically enough, I'm going to do another shout out because Kyle, you've been very instrumental in helping with those because that is your expertise. You really act as a vendor management person because you have those skill sets and you have a whole ecosystem that can be brought to the table where you're like me in many ways, only you're focused on the cloud, which I really respect and have a lot of faith in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just like you mentioned earlier, I mean, I'm a truth seeker. Like that's in summary, trusted advisor. Yeah, but I'm a truth seeker. So I'm out there constantly seeking the truth with all the vendors that I work with, and like what actually works. Now, I don't want to hear about theories. I want to see it actually working. I want to see it actually solving the problem before I feel comfortable saying, "Hey, this actually solves the problem."
But I will also mention again the other three vendors that have been very, they have the same culture or ideology, very customer support, very open and transparent. And that's Last Line and Merlin and Unitrends. I have to mention those along with you as a vendor. And I nobody's paying me to do this. I'm just saying, I think that we have a challenge out here, and we need to make sure that we partner with the right people that can really they have to prioritize our culture first and our resources first, just as much as we do. In other words, they have to be able to do business. I have to trust them to care as much about my business as they do their own.
You said it best in a previous conversation we had. You said a trusted advisor makes the customer's priorities their priorities, and I
Yes.
really love that. That's exactly it.
And it really is, even now, the customer's customer. You
Yeah.
have to think even beyond the first leg, but
Oh
the
yeah.
second leg, right?
Right. Well, so last thing for you before we get into a little bonus round here. But so you just launched ElevateXchange January. That COVID-19 happened. We kind of got into like now what, but now what?
Well, okay, so we're pivoting to do a lot more online. May 7th, as I said before, James Carpenter from Texas Right Children's, Scottish Right, sorry, Texas Scottish Right Children's, um, uh, will, he's the CISO. He's going to talk about, I love this because he's a first responder. Yeah, I mean, people think about media's all over. We're talking about the nurses, the doctors. They're all first responders out there, and yes, God, bless them. Okay, they keep us alive, but nobody thinks about the technology first responders, because without the data, without the accuracy, without doctors being able to be serviced by the technology people behind the scenes, they couldn't be who they need to be. So what James is going to offer or talk about is, what he had to go through from a hospital perspective, as a technology first responder on May 7th. Okay, that's next. And then on June 4th, the next ElevateXchange will be a panel discussion. And we can talk about that. That'll be posted on the ElevateXchange website. It'll be a panel discussion led by Rusty Kennington and four other wonderful Cs. They're either CISOs or VPs or CIOs. But it will be more about digital transformation, those kinds of things. And that's also a part of what we're experiencing now. It is a form of digital transformation to have to move your whole workforce online.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that just about wraps up the show. If you guys have any questions, let us know. We're going to jump into a little round of speed dial right now. So Robin, these are some questions that are more personal about you. Some of these should be pretty quick to answer. But so in your opinion, what is the best business book of all time?
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I'm an old person. So still 7 Habits for effective people. I'm sorry. It was the Stephen Covey series. I love Stephen Covey. So those are the books I read. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think was the name of the title.
Okay, nice. What is a digital resource like an app or a website that publicly available that you could not live without?
Oh, the FTC. Frankly, a lot of people miss that.
The FTC?
Yes, the Federal Trade Commission.
Okay.
They monitor fraud, and they monitor. They really are the governance for. Even though they're a government body, they are the governance to take these companies to court. They're the ones who put out bulletins all the time on, that show trends that are happening in fraud, and fraud's a big part of security, and I think that's something we miss.
Yeah, awesome. And then in IT, what is the number one characteristic that you would look for in like hiring somebody to work on your team or being a part of someone's team?
Well, the first question I ask them is, what's your risk aversity? Okay. It's a benchmark for me. It's not necessarily that I care how high a risk adverse they are or how low a risk adverse they are. It's more about whether they've had a thought process around it or what that might mean to them. So that's my first interview question every time.
I love that. I actually love that. What would you go back and tell your 20-year-old self?
Oh, wow. That's a very good question because I was like a mover and shaker when I was 20. I mean, I was the guru on campus when I was 20 in technology. I never thought of it that way. People used to follow me to class, just asking me technology questions, IT questions. And that was back when we were on mainframes, help me fix this logic. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even have Snowball. I mean, I never had a class in Snowball, and they would follow me around, but it's syntax, it's all the same thing. It was more about the logic. So I would always help students fix their problems. So back 20, what was the question again? Back when I was 20?
What would you tell yourself in your 20s?
Well, I think I would say be a lot more patient. Okay. And I still have problems with that. I I think that, as we get older, thank goodness, two things, I think. Be a lot more patient and listen a lot more. Listen first. And the one thing I do when I advise, I'm like I do mentor people. The one thing I do is say, remember, it's not about you. No matter what capital IT, no matter what it is, nothing is ever about you. It is never about you. So those are the three things that I would say that I would.
That's powerful. Is there a CEO or professional athlete or famous person out there that you wish you could meet?
That's a good question. Um, well, they're all dead.
We can bring him back for this question.
um, well, Golda Meir, Gandhi. I know I'm Christian, but there's a man with complete patience. I would say probably of all the people, Gandhi would be because he lived, I think, the way all of us should live.
Excellent. And last thing, what would you say is like the number one thing that you do daily, like a habit or something like that, to keep yourself dialed in to what
Oh,
you're working on to life?
well, the first thing I do, you're going to think this is funny. First thing I do when I get up is I stretch. Okay. Um, I used to be a gym rat, but now that we're stay at home. So, very first thing, in order to get my blood moving and my brain moving, the very first thing I do is stretch. Okay. The second thing I do is, well, I read my Bible. Okay. So I have, I don't read much. I don't have to read much. I have, a page. I read one page of my Bible every day in order to put me on the path of, thinking the right way. So I believe I go to Elevate Life Church, and I I believe exactly what they say. If you elevate your thinking, you elevate your life. So I I believe that if you read something or listen to tapes, and I'm not saying you need to listen, be a self um, constantly read, listen to tapes all the time. But I am saying that positivity is the number one thing that you need to have in your brain every day. And every negative circumstance always has, I mean, always throughout my whole life, has has ended up being a positive thing. I may not have known it at the time, but it always ended up that way. And when every time I reflected back, so one of the things I do every morning is reflect back on, okay, here's where I'm at. And the challenges that I've faced in the past month, what will that mean to me? in the future and see if I can put a positive spin on everything. I I don't have a negative bone in my body anymore. I've changed since I was 20. Okay. Um, Everything I look at from a conflict, chaos, challenge, what seems to be difficulty in my life, I always go, I can always see the broader picture and go, wow, you know what? Out of this, I'm going to learn patience. I'm going to learn this, and this. So I hope that helps.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Robin. I so appreciate you being on the show today. Last thing. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I was supposed to that you would have asked me? What would you have asked me if you were in my shoes?
That's funny. It's like, one of the questions I ask when I get on a Zoom call with a vendor is, okay, what do I don't know that what do I need to know that I don't know? And they laugh. And
Exactly.
in other words, what are your weaknesses? In other words, what do I don't know that I need to know?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So that would be the question that I would ask, which is what you just asked me. What do I don't know that I need to know? Well, I guess what I would ask you is, um, what 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 kind of future? Everybody has goals, everybody has projections. So what I would ask is, in the next 90 days, because, well, I should say 30,
Yeah.
because the way things are changing, we're changing on a dime. And I think resiliency has to be a part of that. I mean, you personally have to be resilient.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Every day you wake up, there's a whole new list of things, even though you're planned from the day before. Okay. Things pop up. You have to be able to think on your feet. So if I were going to ask you, I would say, where are you going to be in 30 days? Where do you think you're going to be in 30 days?
I'm gonna be on the internet in 30 days. Every day, just about. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna be. So I mean, in simplest form, right? So doing this is what I love to do. Hearing your story, telling other people's stories, and bringing it out, and just sharing the value among all of us, and bringing all of us together in a digital way, in a virtual way. I think that's what I do best. So it's time to shine right now. Time to bring it all together. So I'm ready to go.
Well, and I want to thank you for all your help as a vendor in my community, because um, it although my skill set might stretch, I'm limited. I only have so many hours in the day. So having you even as a part of my trusted advisorship is huge from a cloud perspective. So I want to thank you for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you as well, Robin. Where can people best connect with you, or find out more information about what you're working on? Basically, where do you want people to go after this?
Well, you can go to I'd rather you go to my ElevateXchange. I mean, that's my swan song, and I'm trying to help as many people. The community is really my goal. Okay. So Elevate IT, it's eitevents.com/ elevate dash exchange is the website. But also you can go to my LinkedIn profile,
Yeah,
or
on the screen.
yeah, because I constantly um, post on that. I'm constantly I'm trying to do better. I did one more thing, is that the last dinner I went to, I have to admit, I got one of my peers come up and said to me that they were reading my post, and I was surprised because I never get any response back. I mean, I'm talking about my positive, messages. I send out positive messages all the time to keep people in a better mindset. Elevate your thinking, kind of thing. And ironically, I just kept doing. I never knew if they were looking at them or not, because nobody hardly responded. Um, and when I was at the dinner, they kept saying, "Oh yeah, you got to keep doing that. You got to keep doing that." I went, "Are you reading them?" They said, "Yeah, we're reading them." I went, "Okay." So it's funny, but ever since I formed, or really was helping to form ElevateXchange, Now I'm getting a little bit more responses. Okay. So it's about the community. So I really need to hear from you. Um, you know, I need to hear about if you're a member, you need to join ElevateXchange because I only have so much bandwidth. So my time is to service the members and advisors of Elevate IT and members of ElevateXchange. Excuse me. Those advisors of Elevate IT are already members of ElevateXchange, but you can be, but if you don't want to be an advisor of Elevate IT or are not yet, you can still be a member of ElevateXchange by filling out and clicking on you know, contact. There's a place on the website that you can click on to join, and that would be probably the best thing. Those people who know me already reach out to me on messaging on LinkedIn, and I use that service a lot. I mean, I live there. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. So optimism, be patient, and join ElevateXchange if you're an IT director level or above. Awesome, Robin. Thanks. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And I'll catch everybody else on the next show next week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kyle.